All right, looks like we are live. Welcome to All Falcons on Wednesday mornings, as always, at 10 a.m. Eastern. I'm Scott Kennedy, your host and co-host, and good friend Nick Kendall, who is in Seattle up bright and early to join us to talk some Falcons, Panthers, maybe a little Buccaneers. And we always seem to get into a little draft and team building because we just can't help ourselves because we both love doing it. Nick, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing pretty well. It's we're starting. I think it's only 2 weeks until the days start getting longer. So thank God for that. You were up in Seattle for a bit yourself, and yeah, it's the days here are. It's not like Alaska where you have the span with the sun never coming up, but the days are really short. We're gonna have a 4 p.m. sunset coming up here pretty soon. So I'm craving the sun and missing it a little bit, but the off season football, meaningful football, gets me by.
So I went to Auburn, which is on the very east side of the central time zone, which stretches all the way to West Texas. So it's a big time
Yeah.
zone. And it would get dark if you had a 4 o'clock class, you were coming home in the dark. It'd get dark in the winter on the shortest days about 4:30.
Yeah.
So lots of folks jumping in the chat already this morning. I want to say hello to everybody. EJ, good morning. US Dave, buenos dias. See, you corrected it last time. You had it right. It's buenos dias. And I didn't want to say anything. I'm like, I'm not going to correct Dave. That's too petty. But then once you got it right, now I'm going to have to say, because the dias means it's an A, not an O on the buenos dias. But good morning, Dave. Ethan joining us over from England. So this might be a good afternoon. Let me check the time. Yep. Good afternoon. Ethan, DWI guys. Good morning. Good afternoon. And it's always one of my favorite days over in Europe because it is Champions League Day. And this is actually match day 6, which means the big news in international football means Barcelona could actually get knocked out of the Champions League group stages today, which I was trying to think. I'm like, what's a good analogy for that? I'm like, probably UNC as a 1 or 2 seed going out in the first round, as a 2 seed going out to a 15. That's probably about as crazy as that would be if they were to go out. Jeremy Sean, good morning, fellow movie buff West Coaster, and CT. We'll just call you CT. Hola. He's going with a little Espanol this morning too. So we seem to have a theme going on. So I see the Facebook folks are a little bit later coming in, but if you are coming in, go ahead and hit that like button for me. And we'll see you and say hello in the chat. And if you're coming in and watching this after the fact, leave a comment. I always come back and hit them after the fact. So I enjoy the football talk, and I will interact after the fact. So go ahead and leave comments after the fact. So good morning, everyone. And Nick, let's get into this a little bit. I kind of want to focus a little more on the Panthers than the last game against the Buccaneers. We can hit on that a little bit, but there weren't any big surprises in that game. There wasn't anything that's like, oh yeah, this is something that, what needs to be worked on, this and that. And, it was like, okay, the Buccaneers are better than the Falcons, and the game kind of went the way we expected to. I think if there was any surprise at all, it was that the Bucs came out and threw the ball 14 times in a row or somewhere in that number to start the game. But what were your quick takeaways before we move on to Carolina from the Bucs game?
Buccaneers are a vastly more talented team than the Falcons. You can see that on paper. You talked about a 15 seed beating a 2 seed. That's kind of what it looks like when these two teams are taking the field right now, unfortunately, for the Falcons. And I have a little bit of pity for Matt Ryan. I sent you a tweet last night that I came across from somebody who does a lot of good NFL work, and thought Matt Ryan had an okay game, but his pass protection and pass catchers are not separating pretty consistently. So it's a tough time for the Falcons right now. I thought they played admirably, considering all the facts. I had Cordell Patterson and Davis, who I think Davis only had 4 carries in this game, which is a little bit surprising. But I thought they both ran the ball pretty well. The offensive line, I thought, all things considered, had a pretty good game. It's just Brady and those weapons spreading you out can pick targets, and they did. Probably not enough horses in depth in that secondary. Gronkowski with 2 big touchdowns as well. But overall, I think it was a game where you did compete, and you competed all the way through, which is a testament to Pease and everybody on that staff. But it's just where these teams are right now.
Yeah, I mean, my nits to pick, for a team that was outmatched like this is, you go down and you bring in a heavy set in the 4th and short, and then you empty the backfield. That's one of those. I'm like, okay, when I tweeted it out there, I was like, this is this one's a little hard to defend. This call is hard to defend. And I was like, wait a minute, does that come off correctly? Because I don't mean it's hard for the defense to defend. I mean the call itself is hard to defend the play caller who made that call because it doesn't make any sense. You went empty with a bunch of guys that are big and slow. I mean, if you're going to throw a jump ball, but at 4th and 1, that's still a low percentage play. That's a 1st and goal type of play that you try and get away, a low risk, high reward type of play. But that one didn't make a lot of sense to me. Mike Davis, a few carries, and my cat's coming in here screeching at me. The joys of broadcasting live. Mike Davis gets a lot of stick from Falcons fans, and I feel about him a little bit the way I feel about, to a certain extent, Matt Ryan. Mike Davis is either having to dodge or break a tackle almost 90% of the time behind the line of scrimmage. It's really tough for me to get a read on Mike Davis when he's constantly having to do that. Now, why then does Cordarrelle Patterson have more success? Well, a couple reasons. One, he's a little bit more of a threat out of the backfield. And two, his running style, which I don't think would hold up as a number one over 20, 25 carries a game, is he attacks the line of scrimmage like he does a wedge on a kickoff return. I mean, he hits it at 100 miles an hour. And that is helping him not have those negative plays. But like I said, it's hard for me to say, when Mike Davis gets to the line of scrimmage without being touched, he's a pretty good running back. It just doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, no, you're right. And he's one that I always compare guys back to the Broncos, but I see a little bit of a better version of Royce Freeman with him, where he's big, and no doubt about it, but sometimes he's a little bit slow to the hole. And I think that's a big thing. He really needs build-up speed with that offensive line.
And that's the offensive line, because, we mentioned that with Zeke Elliott, watching him, running behind the Dallas offensive line. And, he's kind of checking things out. Maybe I'll go this way. Maybe I'll go this way. Well, let me dust the ball off here for a second. And now I'll take off and run. It's like, wow, what a luxury that would be. You can run with patience like that. I think Royce may be a little bit better of a runner, but I think Davis is probably a much better receiver. I think he probably had 50 or 60, I don't remember, catches last year for the Panthers. But then it's hard to find him on flare outs and stuff when, you're constantly have 4 guys in your face as a quarterback.
Yeah, and the big thing with Royce, and the reason that he's now on the Panthers instead of the Broncos, is that he never played to his size. Oregon used those wide zone splits with their offensive line, and with those kind of things, you have way better vision in space, and you can be a little bit more finesse because there's just not as many bodies in the box. And in the NFL, is way too condensed, way too fast. Couldn't get to the hole. So that's the similarity to Davis. But Davis at least plays to his size. That's the big thing here.
Clee asked a good question. How bad would this Falcons team be without Cordarrelle Patterson? Easily the Falcons MVP. Basically, they're 5-7, and they've been in all but a couple of games. I've said this team is 5-7, and when they were knocking on 500 and pushing right at 500, there's 3 reasons. One, Matt Ryan is still playing at a fairly high level for what he can do, based on this stuff. 2, Kyle Pitts is as good as advertised. And 3, you've got the best free agent signing in the NFL at $3 million, Cordarrelle Patterson. Without, if any one of those 3 fall apart, especially Cordarrelle Patterson, you're talking about probably 2 wins, maybe. Because I think Arthur Smith said, "Hey, listen, we're 5-2 in 1-score games." Yeah, well, if you didn't have Cordarrelle Patterson and Kyle Pitts, you wouldn't be in those 1-score games, and you might be 1-5 in those, 1-6 in those, and you're looking at a number 1 overall pick next year. So, they'd be real bad if Cordarrelle Patterson wasn't playing at an MVP, literally an MVP level for this team. Not just the Falcons. I'm talking period. You take Cordarrelle Patterson on this team, 5-7 goes to how many against 12? 2-10 goes to 2-10 in a hurry. Yeah,
no, the Falcons are, by most metrics, they're probably one of the bottom 5 to 8 teams in the NFL right now. I think there's a pretty clear delineation between the Jaguars, the Lions, the Texans, and the Jets versus the rest of the league. Those are definitely the worst 4. But the Falcons, unfortunately, are pretty close to them. In a lot of metrics and areas. And you take Patterson off that, you're probably talking about them being another team in that tier of teams. So he's been great. And it's too bad that you don't have him locked up again next year. Although maybe that's a good thing. Get an early comp pick for him, maybe somewhat, or a mid-round comp pick for him, and get as much ammo as you can, because this Falcons team needs a little bit of a facelift in a lot of premier positions.
So we will see, because I've said that this is a guy that they absolutely need to re-sign. We've seen what this offense is like without him; it's non-existent.
Yeah.
Now, it shouldn't be that bad next year. The cap hell has hit its lowest point in 2021. It should get better. It should get incrementally better next year for 22, and then 2023. After that season, it should be okay. You're playing with monopoly money, and assuming you don't do too many stupid things, and that's a big assumption. But I'd like to have a little faith in Terry Fontenot. I had none in Thomas Dimitroff, so I think I think Terry Fontenot will do a good job. Ray comes in. Good morning, Ray. On Facebook, he says, do you guys really believe this Ridley situation? I think he's milking it. I don't know. I'm more interested in what are the Falcons' options right now. And, I'm not going to pass judgment on Calvin Ridley without all the information. There's tweets going around that he was on the sidelines at the SEC championship game. What's he supposed to do? Is he supposed to be, in a straitjacket in a padded room? I don't know. I don't know all the facts on that. So I'm not going to pass judgment on Calvin Ridley without all the facts. It's just, that's not what I do. What I will do is look and see what are the options. And the Falcoholic had a great article on it. They did a really good job of looking at a collective bargaining agreement. It says, what are the options here? And it turns out the Falcons are not tied to his guarantee next year. They can basically, they don't have to pay him at all, or they can extend this year's contract as well and keep him on. It's like, well, that's not fair to Calvin Ridley. I'm like, listen, someone in recovery still getting paid $1.5 million. That sounds pretty damn fair to me. Yeah. So, I don't see any reason why he should count $11.1 million against the salary cap next year for the Atlanta Falcons. If he's done and he needs to be in recovery, and Falcons insurance, all that type of stuff takes care of that, and you're paying him off on 1-year contract at $1 million, I think that is fair for all parties while he gets the help he needs.
Yeah, again, you pretty much your original sentiment I share. Do you guys really believe this Ridley situation? I don't know Ridley. I don't know what he's going through. I haven't walked in his shoes. And until there's more information available, that's pretty much as we can get. I just choosing kindness in that regard, and like hoping that he's okay, because if he's dealing with something, we hope he doesn't do anything drastic and he gets the help that he needs.
Yeah. And again, I've gone into this a little bit before. I'd like to see, and the answer is you can, because what I said was, as long as you can't replace him, it hurts the team. And if it hurts the team, you're going to get negative sentiment around the community, possibly even around your teammates, which hurts recovery. And people are like, well, if he's in recovery, he's not seeing all these things. Well, yeah, he is. He's still probably living a life. He might be going to therapy sessions, for 2 hours a day or whatnot, but he's out on the streets or, out at the grocery store or whatever. And it turns out you can, I don't want to say replace. I don't know how to say this nicely. There really is no way, but you're not tied to his contract for next year. So you can
move on.
You can use that salary cap money, which is a big chunk. I mean, when you've got $27 million next year allocated to Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley, and neither of them might play, you need all the help you can get to help the team. And it turns out they can. So I think that's good news for both Ridley, and it's definitely good news for the Falcons, depending on what they do. But I don't see any reason why his salary should 6x next year if he's not playing. That's not fair to the team. That's not fair to the Falcons.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And that's good to hear that they can have a little bit of manipulation with creating a little bit of cap space. You know where I stand, though, on this Falcons team. I am in I don't see a lot of young ascending talent right now. I don't think they're one of the younger rosters in the NFL. So I'm definitely in the camp of take your medicine, get right 2022. If that means moving on from Matt Ryan or whatever, get as much capital as you can, play young next year, and then go for one of those top 3 draft picks in 2023. And then that's after the year after that is when your salary cap should be really, really in a good spot, and you can really contend and build around a rookie contract of a Bryce Young or a CJ Stroud. But That's just me. I know that not a lot of fans have that type of vision, and maybe that's me being a psycho team building kind of person, because that would be so fun to build from the ground up. And if you could get one of those quarterbacks in next year's class, I think that'd be a good way to go. But it'll be tough. And we got EJ coming in saying, what are the chances the Falcons drafted quarterback this year to learn under Matt Ryan? I think it's possible. I will say it's kind of like the Broncos last year, where it's like, okay, you will take a quarterback in this class, but you had Justin Fields and Mac Jones staring at you in the face, and they weren't good enough. But this year's crop is what gives? I don't get it. But they have been linked. Was a report out there that the Falcons really like Desmond Ridder. I don't think you'd use your first round pick on that, but gosh, who knows? The pre-draft cycle can be crazy, and the media can be very far off from what NFL teams think. So it's definitely possible. But we'll see.
So Ryan Wilson had a mock draft for CBS. I think he came out yesterday, and he had Derek Stingley falling down to the 8th spot, which I think is unlikely, because that's where the Falcons are right now. The Falcons are 8. I think that's unlikely. It'd be great. Yeah. I'd be thrilled with Derek Stingley at 8 with the Falcons, with that big need opposite AJ Terrell at corner. But then he went on to say they could also look to a quarterback in this spot, and I'm like, no. I don't think there's a quarterback in this class that they would take at 8. If there's nobody on the board they like at 8 to fill one of those needs, corner, edge rusher, offensive tackle, then you trade back. Do the Falcons come out of this class with a quarterback? Yes, I believe they do. I don't think they want to go into next year. Josh Rosen's going to be a free agent. He might be out of football. They might be able to sign him for a minimum. Felipe Franks, they've kept him on the team all year, but he's an undrafted free agent for a reason. And I said before the draft that he should be an undrafted free agent. He's not a good enough passer to be an NFL quarterback right now. So I think there's a pretty good chance the Falcons take a quarterback, even if it's mid-tier, mid-level, mid-rounds, to try and maybe you strike gold. Maybe he's one of those guys that develops overlooked for one reason or another. But I think you'll definitely see at least one different quarterback next year, but it's not going to be in the top 10. I don't think they can afford to do that in the top 10 when they got Matt Ryan under contract for 2 more years.
Yeah, totally. Quick question for you. This came to me. So you've watched a lot of Broncos and Falcons this year. You swap Teddy Bridgewater and Matt Ryan. What are the Broncos' record with Matt Ryan the way he's playing right now? 2 more wins?
What is it now, 6-6?
Yeah.
Probably 9-3.
9-3, 3 more wins.
Yeah.
Wow.
Probably.
Okay, 8-4. So
yeah,
I know that contract is hard to move.
He's a significantly better quarterback than Teddy Bridgewater, and also considering the weapons, the way that he can spread things around and how he processes the play early and gets the ball down the field, it changes a lot of things. I think it's a 3-way. I look at the losses for the Broncos, and I've said they get beat up in the trenches when they lose, similar to the Falcons. It's very similar to the Falcons, but the difference is you don't expect the Broncos to get beat up in the trenches. And I think more of a threat of a passing game opens a lot of things up, whereas the Falcons are just outmanned on the lines of scrimmage. They can't run the ball and they can't throw the ball because they don't have receivers or offensive line. Okay, well, you've got a decent offensive line in Denver, and you've got weapons all over the place. Now, if you've got a quarterback that's, and I don't really think that's a bold statement. I mean, Matt Ryan has shown through the years, and he's still not that far off. His team around him is just terrible. That he's got 40+ touchdowns across the board several times. He throws for 4,000 yards every single year. I think 9-3, 8-4. If Matt Ryan was at quarterback at Denver Broncos.
Yeah, I know the contract is hard, but he's one that if you can work it out and you don't get Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers, that I would be very interested in. Obviously, the Broncos would want to keep investing in the offensive line around him, but a way to protect your quarterback and to protect your offensive line is to run the ball efficiently. And the Broncos seem like they got something cooking there over the last few weeks. So we'll
Dave,
see.
Good morning. I think you're usually on Facebook, if I'm not mistaken. So appreciate you joining us over here on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button if you can, or if you haven't already, and you probably already have. You've been really good. So good morning, Dave. I do want to move on to the Panthers a little bit. So watching that game, they've undergone a lot of changes, including their offensive coordinator Joe Brady getting canned since the bye week, and they've been off a little bit. But Cam Newton had about as bad a quarterback game as I've ever seen in the NFL. that's saying something. I think he was 5 of 21, couple intersections, and a quarterback passer rating of 5. 5. If I can do your quarterback rating on one hand, you had a bad day. After they played last time, you said congratulations on making Sam Darnold look like a competent quarterback. I'm like, no, they didn't. He was 13 of 24 and didn't score a touchdown and had 129 yards. Cam Newton just made Sam Darnold look like a competent quarterback, but I don't expect Cam Newton to ever be that bad again. Can't be that bad.
No, probably not. And the Panthers team, obviously they're in flux. That Joe Brady is out right now. There's a lot of questions about Rule, maybe taking some calls from the college game as well. So this is a battle of two teams. I think they're both, like, the Panthers are picking 9 right now in the draft.
It's 5 and 7 right now, and the Falcons have the 8 pick because the Panthers beat them in Atlanta. But who doesn't win in Atlanta? I actually think this is an advantage. Falcons are 0 and 5 at the Dome at Mercedes-Benz this year.
Man. Yikes. Well, this might be a game you win because the Panthers are, like I said, very unstable right now on the offensive side of the ball. I do think they have a lot of horses on the defensive side of the ball, and that was the main takeaway I took from the game the last time these teams played. The Panthers just got athletes on the defensive side of the ball, and sometimes when you got enough investment there, that can overwhelm you, and it looked like it did against the Falcons. And I think that's especially going to be true. I mean, outside of Matt Ryan, I think the Panthers coverage guys, more athletic, bigger, faster, stronger. They got Shaq Thompson, who's turned into one of the better tight end stoppers in the league over these last few seasons. And their defensive line, I mean, Brian Burns, Derek Brown, they can get after it. So as long as the Panthers offense isn't mucking it up, which they definitely can, we've seen that. Panthers, I think, have the advantage on this just because their defense is more talented.
I'm restoring a hard drive, which is half the reason I've been so frustrated the last 24 hours. Because trying to pull stuff off of there is painstakingly slow because it's a damaged hard drive. But one of the things I came across was Shaq Thompson's high school highlights. I'm going to post that on my YouTube channel. And he was up at Grant, I believe was the high school up near Sacramento in central northern California. And we had a lot of debates on him. What position is he going to play? Because he was a phenomenal running back. He played safety. I think his senior year he actually played quarterback because he played like a wildcat style quarterback. And this was right when Mark Barron was coming out too and played safety at Alabama. I'm like, I don't mind him at safety. You can play 220 pounds the way he plays. Just a phenomenal football player. I'm happy for him to see how much success he's been having. But you mentioned that front four. The front four had some success against the Dolphins, who aren't great in the trenches, but they got put in so many bad situations. Derek Brown didn't feast in this game. Daquan Jones looked pretty good, but Brian Burns looked about as good as I've seen him look in the 3 or 4 games I've watched the Panthers. And the fact that I just mentioned 3 guys on the defensive line means you can control the line of scrimmage with your front four. That's going to make it really hard on the Falcons.
Yeah, the Falcons are going to need to be able to run the ball effectively. That's the key. You got to protect your quarterback and your offensive line, and that means rushing the ball efficiently and keeping the Panthers off balance. Because Brian Burns, thank you, Las Vegas Raiders. And in that draft, Brian Burns was one of my top players, and I'm like, if they want to go an edge rusher, I like Brian Burns even more than Josh Allen. And so far, that actually looks pretty right. I'm glad they didn't take him at 4 overall. But like you said, the Panthers defensive line is very good, and with that they can play more guys in space. The real question is, can they play the 2 high safety shell? Will they lean into that? We'll see. But again, you have 2 running backs, you have a quarterback who's not very fleet of foot, and you have an offensive line that the more pass rush reps they have to face, the more likely they're going to break. So protect them.
I'm going to look up real quick line. Just because, I don't know how either team's going to score.
Yeah.
It was 19-13 last game. I don't think I just deleted Nick. Hopefully he'll find his way back in. But I'm going to look this up real quick. And it says the Atlanta, there he is. Oops. There he is. It says it's Carolina -2.5 and the over-under at 42.5. It was 19-13 last time, and the offenses may have gotten worse since they played last. Now this was a game. It was on Halloween, and this was the day. Speaking of Calvin Ridley, that was the game where he told them before the game that he was done, that he was leaving. That couldn't have been. And I remember the press conference after the fact, and Arthur Smith was stern about it. Head coach Arthur Smith was pretty stern about it. He was like, He goes, we found out before the game. And they're like, well, did you have any? He's like, you were here on Friday. You were at practice on Friday. You saw. Meaning Calvin Ridley was here on Friday. We were expecting him to play. And he bailed out on him Sunday morning. That couldn't have had a positive effect on the team. So they've had a little bit of time to rebound and try and get things going. So the offense should be better than it was that day, but the Panthers offense, I don't know that they're going to be any better. McCaffrey didn't play in that game. He didn't play in that game last time anyway. Sam Darnold was okay at best. So the quarterback play, this is going to be a really bad football game. Both offenses, there's a difference. Low scoring games are okay if you've got really good defenses. This isn't going to be one of those games. A pitching duel. If you got two aces up there, it can be exciting.
Special teams,
guys that can't put a bat on a ball, then it's just boring.
Yeah.
This one could be a little ugly.
Yeah, and sorry, I got dipped out there for a second. I clicked a link and poof, there I go. But I have a website that I like to use that just recently been messing with that has all the coverage usage a team has used this season. It's on the back end. So I'm curious what the Panthers are using this year. And actually, this is a team that you should be able to get some vertical shots on in theory because they are a very predominantly single high safety usage. Almost 250 snaps used with cover 1, almost 300 snaps in cover 3. So a lot of the single high stuff, which means you're going to see more guys with the run fit, which means also space for the weapons on the boundary. I don't know if the Falcons have the guys to do that, unfortunately, but maybe this is one where you need to be a little bit more Kyle Pitts as a spread guy. Kyle Pitts on the boundary using the other tight ends on the inside to just get that space and isolate him because I'm guessing the box is going to be pretty condensed.
Busted.
I was clicking on a database to look at these, and Falcons this year are interesting too. I haven't looked at them so much yet. They run 3 times as much cover 2 as the league average. League average is about 75 cover 2 snaps so far this season. Falcons are pushing up at 250.
So Tua and Jalen Waddle had a field day against Carolina, and a lot of that was just straight up the slot. Skinny posts, slants, seam routes, right at the slot. So Russell Gage had a nice game last week against the Buccaneers, who aren't very good in pass defense. So maybe that's where if you've got to start sit 'em in fantasy, Russell Gage could have the opportunities to not put up Jalen Waddle numbers because he doesn't run like Waddle. But I saw Jalen Waddle's touchdown dance. Is that a Waddle? Have you seen it? He puts his arm to his side like a penguin and kind of dips back and forth. I'm like, is that the Waddle? Because I love it.
I'm in 100%. Yeah, he looks great, man. He was one of my favorite wide receivers on that Bama team, and he's so explosive. Probably one of the more close to Tyreek Hill than a lot of guys you've seen recently. I also really like that the guy who transferred from Ohio State. Man, how crazy it is that you can't get playing time at Ohio State, so you transfer to Alabama as a wide receiver. But Jameson Williams, he might be a top 10 pick as well.
He's got breathtaking, run away from you type of speed.
It's the control too. The ability. Some guys are fast, but then they're just out of control.
Ohio State's deep, but there was another guy that won a Heisman and was the number 1 overall pick. So sometimes you just need a better situation.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow ended up being pretty good too, and he left Ohio State as well. I want to hear it real quick on Ray coming back in on Facebook. It says, "How do you feel about Arthur play calling?" I like it so far. I mean, I like what I've seen out of Arthur Smith on the whole. I've liked what I've seen out of Arthur Smith, Dean Pease, and Terry Fontenot. But you have to remember where I'm coming from on this. Where I'm coming from on this is this might be the worst offense, the worst roster in the league, if not bottom 3. The fact that they've won more games already than they did last year, to me, is a little astounding. You look at the offense, and you take away Julio Jones, you take away Calvin Ridley. Hayden Hurst has done nothing. You look at the defense, you've lost your 3 safeties. Who did you get? Who did you replace these guys with? I think was Alex Mack. This already feels like a long time ago. Alex Mack was a center last year, and you replace him with Matt Hennessy. You got Jalen Mayfield, who's a turnstile in the passing game at left guard. You got Caleb McGarry, who has not been very good all year at right tackle. I wonder how they move the ball at all at times. And again, going back to the beginning of this show, this broadcast, was they've been able to move the ball at times because Matt Ryan is still a pretty good quarterback, Cordell Patterson is playing at an NFL MVP level, and Kyle Pitts has been as good as advertised. Outside of that, man, how are they supposed to get anything done? So the fact that they've won 5 with this roster, I think, is more than I expected out of 12 games. So before this Panthers game, I said the ceiling on this team is 10-7. The floor is 7-10. I still think 7-10 is possible. I still think that's get Detroit. And I actually kind of like the Falcons in this game against the Panthers just because I think Matt Ryan's better at quarterback than anything that the Panthers will be able to throw out there.
Yeah.
Can the offensive line hold up long enough to move the ball at all for all the reasons I just got done saying?
Yeah, this will be a good game. You said it'll be ugly, but it'll be competitive, I guess is the word we'll go with. So we'll see. Arthur Smith play calling. How much are you trying to replicate what he had in Tennessee? How even replicable is what they had in Tennessee with Derrick Henry? I don't know. That's a tough question. You probably need some mid-level crossers in the pass game right now. And right now you're running out there with a bunch of 3s and 4s that are not physically dominant. And that's an issue not only in the after the catch game, but also the blocking game as well. Like he asked so much of those guys to block, and these are not guys who are blocking safeties or crack blocking linebackers consistently.
Or quick enough to get separation. They're
quick enough to get,
they're guys. They're just guys. You know, the industry term is JAGs, just a guy or just another guy.
Yeah.
And you know, it's tough. You go and Russell Gage has been out most of the time. He was a second leading receiver last year. So I think I looked it up, and Hayden Hurst was on IR. Russell Gage was out. Calvin Ridley's out. Julio Jones is gone. That was 3,500 yards of passing offense last year.
Not good.
And none of them were playing. Not one of them were on the active roster. And you wonder why. And then you look at the offensive line. You got the rookie left guard and a downgrade at center. You wonder why you're having trouble. I mean, so basically it's hard for me, Ray, to judge what these guys are capable of doing from a play calling perspective when they are so handcuffed. It's like, oh, Dean Pease doesn't know how to call a game. Are you really?
Yeah.
That he's getting it done out there with smoke and mirrors. If it weren't for Dean Pease, good Lord. You know, the fact that they're staying competitive games is because of Dean Pease and Grady Jarrett and AJ Terrell playing at a really, really high level. And Eric Harris probably playing above his level at safety right now too. But, you know, the rest of these guys, Deion Jones has regressed. Foye Lukon's having a good season. The other guys on the defensive line, you know, Tyler Davison in the middle of a 3-4? No. Steven Means is Pro Football Focus's last outside linebacker. Last. Fabian Moreau is a journeyman reserve guy at Washington, and he's coming here and starting, and now he's out. You know, it's bad. It's really bad. And this team's 5-7, 5-2 on the road. Man, if it weren't for good coaching, they'd be in Detroit Lions territory.
Yeah, they are unfortunately in a tough spot, and I know it's cliche and it's overused, but it really is. The NFL is about the Jimmies and the Joes, not the X's and the O's. You got to have the horses around you, unless you're an all-time. I mean, obviously there's some nuance that you can add there, but they're lacking the horses in the trenches. Although I do think they had probably one of their, from what I watched in this game, I thought their trenches actually held up admirably, all things considered. McGarry and Lindstrom is really turning into a pretty damn good guard.
Lindstrom's solid. Lindstrom's a keeper on that bunch. From, you know, Jake Matthews is okay, but he's going to be a top 3 paid tackle next year, I think, somewhere in it's top 5. You know, so that's handcuffing your team. He's not playing at a top 5 level. He's playing at a top 30 out of 60 level.
Yeah, no, you are absolutely correct. So it's tough, and we got Ray coming back in. This will be the last one for me because I got to get going at this. But the Falcons had the ball and I can't click the thing. The Falcons had the ball for an hour.
He's trying to correct himself. He might be thumb typing these. We had the ball at the 1.5 and a field goal. You know, that's bad play calling. Like I said, there was one sequence down there, Ray, where they went heavy and then emptied the backfield. I'm like, what on earth? That was
too
odd.
cute.
But you know, the lack of ability to impose your will with your offensive line or passing game in tight situations because your receivers can't get separation. You know, you can only throw it up high to Kyle Pitts so many times, I think. So there's just not a lot of options, but that one was weird. At least give it a shot. If you're going to go heavy, go big, do it, go after him.
I totally agree. Punch him in the mouth. But it'll be interesting. And Jeremy, the X's and O's matter in New England. That's when I say you have an all-timer, then maybe it changes a bit. But Patriots were pretty average last year, and they had a bunch of guys use the reserve list. And this year they spent a bunch of money, and boom, here you are. And you got an efficient passer and a good run game, a great offensive line, and the best defense in football. So Bill Belichick maybe is one that we don't talk about for that Jimmy's and Joe's. But all right, Scott. Well, I got to get going. I got to go to the licensing here. Got to get my new tags and my new plates for Washington. So
we'll have fun with that. Sounds like
such a blast.
A blast of a morning. And Nick, we'll see you tomorrow on Mile High Huddle on Broncos for breakfast. So appreciate you being here. I'm going to hang out a little bit. There's a couple questions I want to get to, and if any more come in, we'll stick around. But otherwise, Nick, I will see you tomorrow. Appreciate you being here.
Yep. Have a good one, guys.
And Ethan came in here with a question. So, like I said, I'll stick around for a few minutes as long as there's a topic to cover. And, I might get into the Carolina Panthers just a little bit, try and condense my thoughts some. I'm well caffeinated, so I'm kind of all over the place. But Ethan comes in, he says, so do you advocate the Falcons getting what they can for Ryan next year, contract aside, which we have discussed? A quarterback like Ryan, a 36 or 37-year-old quarterback, isn't doing this Falcons team any good. They're not good enough around him for him to be making the kind of money he's making, and you're not building for anything. By the time you get the roster that you need, he's going to be 40, and you can be, I'm a man, I'm 40 all you want, but they're not all Tom Brady. They're not all Drew Brees. So I would absolutely, if I could, contract aside, if I could get value in a trade for Matt Ryan, I would absolutely move on from him. He has said all the right things through his course of his Atlanta Falcons career, but I wonder, would he like to play for a contender as well? Because I don't see that happening in the last 3-4 years of his career. I think the rebuild where you start seeing a real upward curve for the Falcons is 2023. That's where a lot of this money comes off the cap. And you're able to invest in free agency. You'll have 2 or 3 draft classes under your belt. But the problem there is he's due $50 million. He's got a $50 million cap hit the next 2 seasons, and he's due $50 million. So getting rid of him, if you can get a decent trade back, if you can get a decent draft pick back, but you're not saving any money, it doesn't really help you in any way towards the cap. So the only way he helps you towards the cap is if he redoes his contract, which then puts more years on it, which I don't know that that's the right way. This isn't Freddie Freeman we're talking about, where Freddie Freeman had to go through some lean years to get to where all of the trades and everything came to fruition, and you're able to go out and compete and compete for a World Series and win one. I don't see that really as the same type of situation. Ray coming back in again. He says, we had 80 yards rushing at the time and just ran it down the throats. And also the Washington game with 3 runs. That's a win we could have got. I agree. And frankly, Ray, Arthur Smith agreed that they went a little too conservative there towards the end of the game. So rookie head coach with a team that needs a rebuild. He's learning on the job a little bit too. And he was honest enough to say so. In his press conference that, hey, I made a mistake. I don't want to make the same mistake twice. So I think it was the Jets that was the next game when instead of sitting on it, they went deep. Cordell Patterson and got the win on that. So when you could have got, there's probably a couple that could have gone the other way as well with the ball bouncing the other way. But I think 5-7 with this team is a really good job. I really do on the whole. When you look at the roster, I've said it before, there might be 8 NFL guys on the starting 22. The rest are practice squad, reserves, backups at best. And if you can get this done with 8 guys, that's pretty impressive. So, on defense, I'm talking Grady Jarrett, Deion Jones, Foye Oluokun, and AJ Terrell. On offense, Chris Lindstrom at guard, Matt Ryan at quarterback, Cordell Patterson, and Kyle Pitts. That's 4. Everybody else at best is below average or bad. That's a lot of holes. That's a lot of holes. Injuries kill you, and the depth across the course of a game is makes it really tough to compete, especially when you're getting whipped on the offensive line, defensive lines. So with that one, I'm going to get out of here. Maybe give my prediction here real quick. I think now that I just got done talking bad about the Falcons for 40 minutes and how hard it's going to be, the Panthers are 5-7 too, and they're a mess right now. In the quarterback situation, you want to talk about maybe even a worse quarterback situation. It could be the Panthers. They're paying a ton of money out, and they're not getting any kind of decent play week to week. Matt Ryan, when he's got time, actually has put up some good numbers and plays well when he's gotten the opportunity. So best player on offense is out. Quarterback situation's a mess. This one, I think I said the over-under on this was, 42.5, with the Panthers being a 2.5-point favorite. I'm going to Charlie Brown this one and, have Lucy hold the ball for me and think, this is a time where I feel like, the Falcons can go on the road where they're 5-2 and get a win against a team that's playing as poorly as the Carolina Panthers. But the Panthers lost 4 in a row when they came to Atlanta and bullied the Falcons all over the field. So it's hard. It's always hard to pick an Atlanta team to win. But I like their chances. I really do. In a low-scoring game, Younghoe Koo with probably 3 field goals and a touchdown would be 16 points, 16-12, 16-10, somewhere in that neighborhood. 16-13 sounds about right. But I do actually like the Falcons to go on the road and win this one, as crazy as that sounds. So we will see how it goes. But if I'm betting on anything, I'm betting the under. I'm betting the under on 42.5. I like the under by 10 points, which for me is a time where you want to take that bet. I don't know how either one of these teams is going to score points unless they're giving the ball away in bad situations. And I think they know they're bad enough on offense to be conservative enough that they won't do that. And it could come down to a final possession. And I trust Matt Ryan with the ball with 2 minutes more than I do the Carolina Panthers with the ball in 2 minutes. So we will see how it goes. But as always, I appreciate y'all being here. And we will be back next Wednesday, 10 a.m. for sure. And keep an eye on the channel as I start loading some stuff. Keep an eye on that Shaq Thompson highlights. I'm going to put those up there from high school. He was so good when he was coming out of high school. And you can see the athleticism he had at multiple positions. We will be back next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern. And for those of you who are in here watching Nick and I from Broncos, we'll be back on Broncos for breakfast tomorrow morning at 10 Eastern. Otherwise, I will also see y'all tonight producing on Mile High Huddle at 8 o'clock Eastern, probably closer to 8:20 since it's Chad and Zach for their Thursday night mailbag. Wednesday night show, tomorrow night's mailbag. So either way, 8 o'clock, same time, same channel. So appreciate y'all being here, and we will see you next time.